Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine peering back thousands of years. We're talking about understanding not just, how people lived, but the really intimate details, how they expressed themselves, their cultural practices, what those meant, even sometimes how they died. That's our mission for this deep dive into these ancient lives.
And what's really fascinating here is how you can have these, well, seemingly quite different findings. Like you've got a new recipe for ancient eye makeup over here, and then a school showing signs of uh, pretty severe trauma over there. But when you look closely, they actually come together to paint this much richer, more complex picture of ancient societies, particularly in Iran.
Exactly. So today, yeah, we're diving into two recent archaeological breakthroughs. Our sources are, first, a scientific paper looking at ancient eye makeup found at Kotor, it's an Iron Age site. And second, some really important research on a modified skull from Chega Sofla, a much older Copper Age site. We're going to pull out the key takeaways, the surprising bits, and really give you a front row seat to what they found. All right, let's start with our first deep dive. We're in northwestern Iran at Kotor. This is an Iron Age cemetery used roughly between the 9th and 7th centuries BCE. And it's interesting geographically, it's sort of on the eastern edge of the old Assyrian Empire. We know it's an elite burial because the grave goods are just, well, they're remarkable.
What kind of things did they find?
An iron sword, for one, intricate horse tack, lovely silver vessels, and personal items like a really stunning silver tiara. Apparently, it's comparable to crowns worn by Assyrian kings, which is quite something. Also, silver armlets, beads. But the real focus for us today, the cosmetic objects.
Ah, okay, the coal connection.
Exactly. They found a bronze mirror, these little silver things called ear picks,
Yeah?
and two coal containers. One was this little ivory tube, the other ceramic bottle, and crucially, both still had black powdery stuff inside, intact, plus two applicators, little pin-like things, one silver, one ivory, shaped like a bird's head. Very neat.
Right. And coal itself, I mean, it was everywhere in the ancient world, wasn't it? Egypt, the Middle East, you find it all the time in burials. It was clearly a very personal, very common item.
So it wasn't just an elite thing then?
Well, the Egyptian recipes we know about are often lead-based, sometimes manganese, silicon.
Wow.
They often had organic stuff mixed into oils or fats. And it wasn't just cosmetic. It seems to have had medicinal uses, too, like protecting the eyes, maybe treating infections. Now, for the Middle East, generally, the research is a bit more limited compared to Egypt. But what we do know points to lots of different recipes, a real variety. And specifically in the Neo-Assyrian period, same time as Kotor, eye makeup was definitely important for women. We found coal applicators in queens' tombs at Kalhu, that's modern Nimrud. But what's really interesting, and maybe challenges our views, is that contemporary art, like wall paintings from Tilbarsip, shows Assyrian men, even the king, wearing eye makeup.
Okay. So not just for women back then. That's surprising.
Yeah, it kind of throws our modern assumptions about gender and cosmetics out the window, doesn't it?
It really does. But finding the coal is one thing. Figuring out what's in it after thousands of years. How did they do that?
Well, this is where the really cool science comes in, cutting-edge methods. Think of it like super high-res chemical fingerprinting for ancient makeup. They use things like X-ray fluorescence, micro-Raman spectroscopy, X-ray powder diffraction, electron microscopy. Basically ways to see exactly what elements and molecules are there, even in tiny amounts.
Like ancient forensics.
Exactly. And those techniques, they turned up something pretty groundbreaking. The black powder. It was mainly a mix of manganese oxides, things like pyrolusite, common black pigments, but mixed with natural graphite. And some minor bits of clay, quartz, calcite, probably from the container or base materials, maybe some iron oxides too, but the graphite. That's the kicker. This is the first time we've ever seen natural graphite used as a main ingredient in ancient coal.
Graphite. Like pencil lead graphite.
Sort of, yeah. It's a crystalline form of carbon, different from carbon black, which is basically soot from burning stuff.
Yeah.
Manganese oxides, okay, those were used a lot in Mesopotamia, Egypt, for pottery, tomb paintings, other cosmetics. Pretty standard. But graphite occurs naturally in certain rocks like gneiss and schists. And importantly, those rocks are abundant right there in the nearby Zagros Mountains.
Okay, so it was local. But why graphite? Was it just easier to get, or was there something special about it?
Good question. Probably a few reasons. Availability, yes, definitely. Easy to source locally from the Zagros. But also aesthetics. Graphite has this quality where it reflects light. It gives a kind of metallic shimmer.
Oh, interesting. So would it look different?
Yeah, quite striking, probably. More shimmery than a plain matte black. And there's a functional benefit, too. It's structure, it's layered. That means it sticks to surfaces like skin really easily. Probably better adhesion than, say, carbon black soot.
So local, shimmery, and sticks well. Makes sense. But you mentioned Egyptian coal often had oils or fats. Did they find any of that here?
That's another really interesting point. No, they didn't detect any organic stuff like plant oils or animal fats. Now, two possibilities, right? Either they deliberately made it without organics, or maybe more likely, any organic bits just degraded completely over, nearly 3,000 years. We just know that Egyptian coal did often have that organic fraction, so this Connie Coder stuff seems different in that respect, too.
So how does this graphite recipe fit in the bigger picture? You mentioned other sites in Iran.
Right, it shows just how diverse things were. If you go back further in time in Iran, like Shaddad or Shari Sokta, late 4th, early 3rd millennium BCE, their coal was lead-based. Totally different. Connie Coder, zero evidence of lead. But its use of manganese does link it to older finds, like from Tudub in Iraq, where manganese was also key. But then, even sites geographically close to Connie Coder had different recipes. Hasanlu nearby used antimony oxide, and another site, Astark Jushakan, had similar containers but used lead-based recipes again.
Wow. So it really wasn't one size fits all, was it?
Not at all. It points to this really fluid tradition, people adapting to what was available locally, cultural preferences, maybe social needs. It really underscores how important appearance and grooming were, for elites anyway, men and women in the Iron Age there. And they were clearly resourceful, using local geology, that graphite, to create something unique. That metallic shimmer must have been quite the statement.
It's amazing. Material science meeting ancient beauty. Okay, that's a fantastic look at the Connie Coder coal. Now, let's shift gears quite dramatically. We're going much further back in time. Copper Age, 5th millennium BCE. And we're heading southwest in Iran to a site called Chega Sofla Cemetery.
Yes, Chega Sofla. It's part of the Zora Prehistoric Project. They found all sorts of their homes, tools, pottery, and what might be the world's oldest brick tombs. Really significant site. And they have both individual and communal burials.
And within this site, there's one particular find that tells a very different, quite poignant story.
That's right. It's a skull designated BG 1.2, belongs to a young woman, and what makes it stand out immediately is evidence of artificial cranial deformation. Head shaping.
Head shaping. Like they intentionally changed the shape of her skull.
Exactly. It's often called cranial banding. It's an ancient practice we see in various cultures around the world. Basically, they'd wrap a child's head tightly from a very young age while the skull is still pliable. And over time, this guides the growth into an elongated shape.
Why? Why would they do that? Was it about beauty? Status?
It seems to be a mix, depending on the culture. Often, yes, it was a marker of identity or maybe elite status, tribal belonging. It could have been tied to specific aesthetic ideals. It wasn't random. It was a deliberate cultural practice. But it has real physical effects. It deforms the skull, obviously, but it also tends to make the cranial bones thinner. And specifically, it thins the diplo, that's the spongy layer inside the bone that normally helps absorb impacts.
Okay, so it makes the skull potentially weaker.
Potentially, yes. And BG 1.12 is actually the first clear evidence of this practice found at Chega Sofla. So her skull is really important for understanding that aspect of their culture.
And again, I assume science played a big role in understanding her story.
Absolutely. Just like with the coal, they used advanced imaging. CT scans, in this case. This let them get really detailed 3D views of the skull. They could measure bone thickness precisely, map out fractures, look for any deposits inside the cranial vault.
And what did the scans reveal about BG 1.21, besides the shape?
They revealed a tragedy, really. There was a clear fracture, triangular in shape, and it was perimortem.
Perimortem, meaning?
Meaning it happened at or very close to the time of death. There were no signs of healing, no bone remodeling around the break. The impact fractured two bones, the left parietal and the frontal bone, and the analysis suggests it was caused by blunt force trauma. Something with a broad edge hit her. It wasn't a sharp object, didn't seem to penetrate right through the vault. Even though her skull was likely thinner due to the modification, the blow itself didn't pierce through, but the impact was clearly severe. You can see the fracture running along the edge of the parietal bone.
That's grim. Do they know why? Was it an accident? Intentional violence?
We can't know for sure, unfortunately, just the evidence of the blow itself. But what adds another layer is that they also found another skull at the site, someone else who had suffered a fatal head injury. But that individual did not have cranial modification.
Oh, okay. So head injuries weren't only happening to people with modified skulls.
Exactly. It suggests that, well, fatal head trauma, maybe violence, was a reality in this community more broadly. It wasn't solely a consequence of the head-shaping practice making people more vulnerable, though it might have contributed in her specific case. It gives us a wider, maybe more sobering picture of life and death back then. But there are limits. Because the bones were found in a dense communal burial, they couldn't isolate the rest of her skeleton. So we don't know much more about her exact age, maybe clues about her lifestyle or status beyond the head shaping.
Still, it's such a stark finding. It really highlights the sort of unintended consequences, maybe. You have this cultural practice deeply ingrained, shaping identity. But it could also make someone more susceptible to a fatal injury like this.
Precisely. It's a powerful reminder of the interplay between culture and biology, and sometimes the harsh outcomes. It does raise that question. How do discoveries like this, which show both human ingenuity and human vulnerability, change how we see these ancient communities? They weren't just abstract concepts, they were real people navigating traditions, resources, and dangers.
So bringing these two discoveries together, Connie Coder's shimmery coal and Chega Sofla's tragic skull. One seems to be about beauty, resources, status. The other about tradition, cultural practice, violence, vulnerability. But taken together, what do they tell us?
I think they show the incredible richness and complexity of life in ancient Iran, even across different time periods. You see ingenuity finding graphite for a better cosmetic, resourcefulness. You see deeply embedded cultural traditions like head shaping, shaping bodies to fit ideals. And you see the stark realities, the potential dangers, the evidence of trauma.
Yeah, it's not just one simple story.
Not at all. And it's the science, really, that lets us get past assumptions. We can directly analyze the materials people use, like the coal ingredients. We can reconstruct traumatic events from bone evidence. It brings their preferences, their traditions, their resourcefulness, and even the violence they faced into much sharper focus. Knowledge really comes alive when you can see it applied like this.
So, recapping. We've got this unique graphite-based coal from Connie Coder, highlighting local know-how, regional diversity, maybe even challenging gender norms around makeup. And then the profound, sad story of BG 1.20 from Chega Sofla, revealing both this ancient practice of cranial modification and the brutal reality of blunt force trauma. These aren't just artifacts or bones anymore, are they? They feel like direct lines to individuals.
They really do. To their cultures, their choices, the surprising details of their lives, and their deaths.
It makes you think.
It does. Maybe a final thought to leave people with. Consider how those choices made thousands of years ago, what pigments they put on their eyes, how they shaped their bodies according to their culture, how those choices echo through time, and how learning about them challenges our own modern ideas about beauty, about tradition, and maybe about how vulnerable we all are then and now.
Powerful questions indeed. Lots to think about there. Until next time, keep digging for those insights and stay curious.